every country has been publicized about the outbreak of a dangerous infection disease with the coronavirus or COVID-19. However, it cannot only affect human health to the point of plaguing dozens of lives, but is also affected by widespread global socioeconomic disruption such as inflation and unemployment. Therefore, the purpose of this assignment is first, to look the overview of inflation and unemployment of the China country, thus making it a macroeconomic problem. Second, to identify impact or problems of coronavirus pandemic on inflation and unemployment of the China country. Third, to study about the implementation of the monetary and fiscal policy to overcome the problem of inflation and unemployment. Inflation means measuring how much more expensive of a good and service has become cover a certain period, usually a year. So that the concept of inflation, the first one is demand pull inflation. It happens when there is excess of aggregated demand for goods and service over aggregated supply or the maximum available output in the economy. And the second concept is cost push inflation. It's due to increased production costs. Meanwhile, the meaning of the employment refers to the number of people who are available and looking for work, but who are unable to do job. The concept of unemployment refers frictional caused by workers voluntarily changing job and by temporary layoff. Second concept, structural caused by a change in the structure of an economy. Third, clinical caused by infection AD. And the last one, seasonal and decoration, is to show the condition where the industry are oversuffered with the unnecessary additional workers.
Point 2 background of the China. The one-child policy in China is partially to blame for China's huge population and relatively small youth population. We focus on three sections, which main features, national income per year, and main economic sector contribution. For main features, Chinese consumers are increasing their spending on lifestyle service and activities while transitioning from mass to leisure product categories. National income per year, the gross national income, which the sum of all the value added by domestic producer, any product taxes, and net receipt of primary income. And the last one is main economic sector contribution. China is one of the biggest nations in the world and a prominent producer and manufacturer of goods for industry.
Next is the overview of inflation in China. Graph 1 below shows the pattern of inflation rate in China from 2018 to 2022. From 2018 to 2019, the inflation rate increases. This is mainly because of an outbreak of coronavirus in 2019. Luckily, the inflation rate from 2019 to 2021 is decreasing because people are slowly adapting to the new norms of pandemic. However, in 2021 to 2022, the rate of inflation in China increases again because the cases of coronavirus in China are slowly increasing.
Next is overview of unemployment of the China, a very direct result of a China dealing with the unchecked COVID-19 pandemic at the beginning of 2019 and its recovery by the end of 2022 is the rise in unemployment. To prove the percentage of official unemployment that can be seen in China in the chart 2 below, that is released every month or quarter. As you can see in the chart, for 2019, the maximum unemployment rate is estimated to be 5.3%, while for 2020, the maximum unemployment rate is recorded at 6.2, a dangerous level. Additionally, the chart shows the unemployment rate declining at the end of 2020 and rising again in 2022. The unemployment rate for people aged 25 to 59 rose to 5.0% in November from 4.7% in October, while those aged 16 to 24 fell to 17.1%, 0.8 percentage point lower than the previous month. Meanwhile, the unemployment rate in 31 large cities and towns rose to 6.7% from 5.0%.
Moving on to the impact of inflation inflation in China. So the first impact of inflation in China is the existence of rich-poor gap. The rich-poor gap divide in China is much wider when total wealth is considered. Income disparity has been a prominent topic recently, particularly after the Great Recession in the year of 2020. Thus, many people believe that the wealthy are becoming more prosperous, while the great majority is falling behind. Graph below are the reference of China's wealth range group in 2020. The next impact of inflation in China is the increase in price and reduction in purchasing power of money. Price increases are indicated by an increase in inflation, and this is cited by Government of UK in 2017. The purchasing power of money falls with an increase in inflation, which reduces consumption and lowers the GDP, which is the gross domestic product. In fact, inflation can also distort purchasing power over time for fixed interest rate receivers and payers.
Employment that is the effect of problems arising from the coronavirus pandemic that has in China is, first, for the economy there will be low production and income, slow economic growth and high poverty. Can be clearly seen when no trade activity that are carried out between countries with the other countries because of the COVID-19 control restriction on the activity of firms and factory operators cannot continue as usually to market their products widely with the public also unable to buy product production and affected the logistics chain. In the absence of this, the employers are also not required to continue serving in a company due to the fact of that there is no task that can be given by the employers. Finally, when there is no job, then they have no money to continue living and become poor. As an example of evidence that can be displayed that happiness in China. In addition, individually people will experience uncontrollable emotional suffering, especially depression, frustration, and stress. It's clearly seen in situations where the individual who is still working has to be dismissed immediately because the employer is unable to continue funding the cost of employee salary in effort to reduce the scale of staff in a company. As an example, this happened in China that can be proven as shown. And this problem prevails the global financial crisis that is difficult to recover from in the near future, and the employment rates of a scala are experienced workers in its stage.
So here, I would like to explain to everyone what is the fiscal policy. Fiscal policies are used by the government to influence a nation's economy. In order to keep an eye on the national economy, the government modifies its spending levels, tax rates, and other expenditures. So what is the example in China? China implemented an expansionary fiscal policies from the end of 2019 until 2020 to support economic growth and prevent economic problems during pandemics. Expansionary fiscal policies entail that the government spends more money than it takes in through taxes. For example, increase in taxes effectively reducing the effects of inflation on the economy requires a tax system that is very regressive. Tax increase would reduce people's disposable income and their ability to purchase goods and services. Second, decrease in government expenditure. Reduced government expenditure will directly impact total demand. For example, the consumption tax change in Beijing that implemented in China through local government tax revenue is a start in the right way, but may be slow in the momentum towards more significant and necessary tax reforms in the future. So next, I would like to explain about monetary policy. The demand side of economic policy is defined as monetary policy, and it basically refers to the action that be taken by the central bank. Central Bank of China to manage money supply and interest rate in order to create microeconomic results that support long-term economic growth. China lends to maintain monetary policy as normal as feasible in order to align the strategic grid for long-term development throughout the COVID-19 pandemic. First monetary policies example that be implemented in China is open market operations by offering short-term bonds, treasury bills, and other government securities to members of the public than the banking industry. The central bank directly lowers the total amount of cash balance in the public asset portfolio and cash reserve with the commercial banks. Selling by central banks of securities result in a decline in asset price, which in turn reduce the amount of money in circulation. So the second example is selective credit control policy. By offering short-term bonds, treasury bills, and other government securities to members of the public and the banking industry, the Central Bank of China directly lowers the total amount of cash balance in the public assets portfolio and cash reserve with the commercial banks.
Next, I want to present about unemployment fiscal policies. First is using unemployment insurance. China will focus on creating jobs and promote fiscal, monetary, and industry policies to stabilize its labor market. This is on base Minister of the Ministry of Human Resources and Social Security said on Thursday as the Chinese economy struggled to recover from a COVID-induced slump. The youth unemployment rate has surged to a record high of 19.9% in July, while the nationwide survey-based urban jobless rate is but remained elevated at 5.4%. Unemployment insurance payout hit an all-time high in June. A portion of unemployment insurance benefit may be reimbursed to small and medium-sized businesses if the unemployment rate is not higher than the rate recorded in the previous year's national survey. Second is reducing taxation is one of the key fiscal policy tools the government has at its disposal to reduce unemployment. The government can reduce tax rates on business and individual when unemployment is high or the economy needs a lift out of a recession. Second is unemployment of monetary policies. First is reduce discount and interest rate. As discussed in an early post, the lockdown that China implemented in February to prevent the spread of COVID-19 struck small and medium-sized enterprise (SMEs) particularly hard. By the month of May, the economy had shown significant signs of improvement, as may be seen in Figure 1. The majority of establishments were operating normally again. Employment levels have returned to an average of 96.4% of what they were before the shock in those businesses. Second is real estate. On January 26, as part of the nationwide effort to control the spread of the disease, the China Real Estate Industry Association issued the proposal to the real estate development enterprise to suspend their on-site promotion activities until the outbreak is over. This was done as part of the effort to control the spread of the disease throughout the nation. At the same time, housing and urban rural building agencies all over the country have adopted measures that are very similar to those that have been implemented.
I can conclude that, according to one interception consistent with our findings, the Chinese national account overstate the pace of service sector development, which would understate growth as the share of the service in the Chinese economy increases. Based on the intuition that nighttime light increases across Chinese provinces are more closely related to source of growth that have remained essentially steady than with indicators that have declined. like railroad freight. Our conclusion that Chinese growth is comparable to official figures is supported. China is the second largest economy in the world and a significant participant in international commerce. Numerous global corporations operate in China, and many more are interested in growing there. The Chinese market is crucial for firms, and many would struggle to thrive without access to it.